Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some truly paradigm-shifting ideas. We're going to focus entirely on the teachings and writings of the guy Shifeng, who is the founder of Life Yuan. Specifically, we're looking at his 2008 essay called Reflections on Productivity. Now, this isn't your standard business seminar stuff. Shifeng completely challenges our foundational, traditional understanding of human progress and what it actually means to be productive. It's a huge philosophical shift that really asks us to fundamentally rethink our relationship with the world around us. So let's just get right into it.
Humans are the primary factor in the destruction of nature. Well, how's that for a hook? This is a direct and honestly pretty provocative statement from Shifeng, and it immediately turns the traditional narrative of human achievement completely upside down. I mean, we almost always think of productivity as a purely positive thing, right? It's our measure of success, of how far we've advanced. But the Guide of Life Yuan asks us to just hit pause for a second. He wants us to consider if what we constantly celebrate as progress is actually just the systematic dismantling of our very own home.
To make this point, Shifeng actually roots his argument in the very definitions we use every single day. He points straight to the authoritative modern Chinese dictionary's definition of productivity, and it's kind of wild when you actually read it out loud. It explicitly defines productivity around humanity's drive to conquer and transform nature. Shifeng finds this fundamentally unsettling, and frankly, you can see why. It frames our entire relationship with the planet as this battle. It's an adversarial conquest where human capability is the weapon and nature is just the enemy we're trying to vanquish.
And that leads us to a really profound yet simple rhetorical question. Why exactly must we conquer nature? Shifeng points out this massive, glaring logical flaw in this whole adversarial mindset. Think about it. The atmosphere, the earth, the mountains, the rivers, the plants, the animals, these are all integral parts of nature. But here's the kicker. Humanity itself is also a part of nature. So claiming that we need to go out and conquer nature essentially means humans are trying to conquer themselves. It's an absolutely absurd proposition when you break it down like that.
According to Shifeng, nature is inherently beautiful and perfectly balanced in its original state. So what actually happens when we step in and insist on transforming it? Well, we get rising temperatures, melting glaciers, desertification. We get soil acidification, polluted skies, and just massive ecological imbalance across the board. These aren't just random, isolated incidents. Shifeng argues these are the direct, self-destructive consequences of humanity trying to use its limited intelligence to forcibly alter an inherently perfect natural system. Because our traditional definition of productivity leads to such disastrous outcomes, Shifeng says we have to completely toss it out and re-examine the concept. He proposes a radically simplified yet highly objective redefinition instead. He says, any factor capable of production is productivity. That's it. Forget about conquest. Forget about human-centric technological dominance. If something can literally produce, it is a productive force. This completely strips away our human ego and forces us to look at the world so much more objectively. So, under this new definition, who or what are the true producers? Well, the Earth is a productive force because it physically produces our crops and sustains life. Rivers and oceans nurture countless fish. The atmosphere supports all breathing life on the planet. Sunlight provides the absolute essential energy for photosynthesis. When you start observing nature through this Life Yuan lens, Shifeng points out that you realize nature itself, the earth, water, air, and sunlight, is the actual undeniable source of true productivity. Which brings us to a really fascinating comparison. We constantly hear that modern catchphrase, science and technology are the primary productive forces. We hear variations of that literally all the time. But Shifeng pushes back hard on this. He calls that view narrow and biased, arguing instead that nature is the true primary force. And his logic is pretty bulletproof. He asks, without sunlight, without air, water, or the earth itself, what could humans possibly decide or invent? Without nature, human science and technology are just entirely powerless. So, the takeaway here is that we urgently need to correct the record. The traditional academic view claims that the level of productivity development marks the extent of humanity's conquest of nature. Shifeng argues this is just flat out wrong. Because our human productivity so frequently degrades the very environment that keeps us alive, the phrase really needs an update. It actually marks the extent of humanity's destruction of nature. It's a sobering realization, isn't it? It completely reframes all of our proudest industrial and technological milestones.
Now, to really ground this philosophy in something tangible, Shifeng shares a wonderful, super vivid anecdote from his own life. One morning, while he was working in his cucumber field, he observed something incredible. He noticed that every single cucumber vine grows tendrils exactly half a foot apart. If those tendrils can't reach anything, they just keep growing straight. but the exact moment they find a support, they coil super tightly around it, which lets the plant climb upward toward the light. It's an unbelievably clever, highly adaptable behavior.
And he shares another totally relatable example from his garden. Behind his backyard bar, he was watching these climbing plants, kind of similar to Boston ivy, scaling vertical walls and even reaching all the way up to the rooftop. Now, how do they manage that? Well, their thin stems periodically produce these tiny little feet that actually secrete a sticky liquid. And this liquid adheres so tightly to sheer surfaces that it allows them to scale walls and cliffs effortlessly. As Xuefeng points out, these climbing plants display just an incredible amount of ingenuity. But all this incredible botanical engineering raises a really crucial question. Are cucumbers and climbing vines actually intelligent and wise? We really have to pause and think about this. Do these plants have brains? Are they sitting there consciously strategizing their ascent up a brick wall or a trellis? Zhu Feng uses this simple observation of nature to pivot our explainer today from just, simple nature watching into a much deeper philosophical and theological exploration. Because, of course, the plants themselves aren't consciously intelligent, so where on earth does this brilliant engineering come from? Zhu Feng concludes that their incredible ingenuity directly reflects the wisdom of a creator. Nature, through something as simple as a cucumber tendril or a sticky little vine foot, is continuously enlightening us. It reveals that an extraordinarily intelligent being absolutely must exist behind all of these perfectly balanced, highly productive natural systems. And that realization brings us to the core theological conclusion of Xuefeng's essay and the entire Life Chen Yuan philosophy. What actually is productivity? The greatest creator is productivity. Who is the primary productive force? The greatest creator is the primary productive force. True productivity doesn't originate from human hands, and it didn't just fall out of the sky by random chance. The original, definitive source of all life-sustaining production is this ultimate creator. Zhu Feng notes that when this understanding finally clicks for us, everything simplifies. We suddenly realize we don't need to conquer nature at all. Instead, he outlines 4 incredibly simple steps for living in harmony. Number 1, revere the greatest creator. 2, respect all life. 3, cherish nature. And 4, follow the way of the greatest creator. He believes that if we just live according to nature's inherent laws, nature itself will beautifully arrange absolutely everything for humanity. Which leaves us with one final, lingering question for today. If our forced human version of productivity only leads to the destruction of the very planet that keeps us alive, is it time we stop trying to conquer nature and finally start learning from it? Xuefeng's Life Chen Yuan teachings offer a powerful warning that using our limited human intelligence to try and outsmart nature only leads to dire outcomes. So consider this an invitation to deeply reflect on your own worldview. Are we conquerors, or are we students of a brilliant natural design? Definitely something to really think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.